Right, 10 o'clock by my computer, which I gather is a few seconds slow. Okay, welcome to the International False Rape Timeline. The subject of this hangout is false allegations of child sexual abuse. But we'll be covering quite a bit more, including sort of recent news and stuff. It's been about 3 weeks since I held the last one. For a number of reasons. One is that I've got health problems again. Particularly back and neck problems. I've been doing work elsewhere. I've also made a short, quite a short video on Virginia Roberts. First, though, a shout out to a couple of other sites which deal with false allegations. There's Victims. It's Victims with an F instead of an F instead of a V. Victims.com. It's run by a guy who's living in the West Indies now, I think. We've got a couple of people helping him with it. It hasn't been up for long. We've got a lot of stuff on there, not just false rape allegations, but all sorts of fake victims. And also to Irish Salem, which is a sort of blog, WordPress run by Sean Coleman, a fan of mine in the Irish Republic, and I'm a fan of his as well. So check out those two. There's also the false rape blogspot now, which is called now Community of the Wrongly Accused, or Community of the Wrongfully Accused. Right, take a lot of ground to cover. This story, first is a story of a bloke who was acquitted of rape. I'm not sure I would have acquitted him. This is a guy who's this is a report in The Guardian. Man was sleepwalking when he sexually assaulted a woman, jury finds. Judge says Dal Kelly may need treatment as jury finds he was not responsible for his actions. As he got to say, it's good thing you didn't commit a murder. I mean, I've heard this before. This is sexonia, and I don't. Well, I don't give a lot of credence to it. I'm sorry, but the jury found him not guilty, so we have to live with that. There's a film being made about Brian Banks. If you study false rape allegations, you've probably heard of him. It's a case which is well, it would be ludicrous if it weren't so tragic. He's on the false rape timeline, but he's he spent 5 years in jail, possibly because he had a bad lawyer. But what happened after he got out was just unbelievable. What happened when he was in there, got in there, was unbelievable. So anyway, good luck to him. There's also a film being released in March next year in India. It's called India's Sons. It's about false rape allegations in India. It's got I've seen a trailer for it. Got quite 2 or 3 female contributors who are presumed mothers or something. In India has unique problems with false rape allegations, partly due to the dowry system. Also, they have a somewhat elastic definition of rape there. Not as elastic as a feminist definition, but and it's the only country on earth in which false rape allegations are made often with a financial motive, usually blackmail. I mean, the compensation is paid to rape victims in this country and elsewhere, but generally speaking, there are very few rape allegations made purely to claim criminal injuries compensation. Excuse me. usually if women, if false rape accusers claim compensation, it's as a side effect. Up until a while back, New Zealand had a problem. New Zealand is a small country, was a small population anyway, and a very generous scheme for not only criminal injuries but for accidents. And as you might imagine, people were claiming against it, claiming against it left, right, and centre. I shouldn't be tired because I went to bed very late and made sure I got up late and had some clips this afternoon. Painkillers maybe, but they've clamped down on that now. But India has unique problems with false rape allegations. But having said that, the Indian police are well onto it. Well up for the job, and they pulled off some great coups, arresting false rape accusers. Right, the Me Too movement, or cancel culture, whatever you want to call it, has claimed what may be its first fatality. I don't know if you've heard of Zoë Quinn. She's a so-called game developer and a radical feminist. Unlike Anita Sarkeesian, who has big hoop earrings, and if she weren't a feminist, would be 9 out of 10. Zoë Quinn is a horrible, she's got rings for her lips, she's got tattoos down both her arms, and she's a particularly horrible woman. She developed she's meant to be a game developer. She developed an HTML game, which, she's got a very low reputation in gaming circles, although surprisingly a lot of people find it from Patreon. A while back, I think it's 2012, she had a relationship with a bloke called Holowka, who was a game developer in Canada. Alec Holowka may have been a male feminist, but whatever, he had serious problems, mental problems. He would alpha male he was not. And last month, Quinn accused him out of the blue of, it might be called digital rape, but she made allegations against him which totally, no doubt are totally untrue. Firstly, because she's twice his size. Secondly, because of the delay. And thirdly, because she's never been slow about whining about other things. She actually teamed up with Anita Sarkeesian at one point. And she accused this guy of sexual abuse. He was fired just like that, just an allegation on Twitter, basically. No police report for the obvious reason. An allegation on Twitter from a woman as a woman who is a proven track record of lying, and the poor bloke topped himself. There's been quite some outrage about it. Quinn shut down a Twitter account, appears to have popped, maybe temporarily, but it's really tragic. This is a guy who was not an alpha male. This clarifies as news and child sexual abuse, false child sexual abuse. In Australia, Cardinal Pell, the number 3 man in the Catholic Church, lost his appeal. I've studied quite a lot about this case, and again, you got the purported delay in reporting. You got the purported delay, and the circumstances under which he's meant to have committed this sexual assault. There's just one accuser. There was another one who died but recanted before he died. And I mean, I've seen quite a few videos of Pell. I'm not particularly impressed. He's been seen as the sort of a hitman for covering up child sexual abuse. I mean, particularly in Australia, there were pervert priests on the loose. There were also quite a number of false allegations. Now, if you cover up a false allegation, the authorities often do this. They don't release the names of the accused in order to protect them from, if an allegation is patently false. But Pell seems to become the victim. I mean, I've suggested he was a victim of the homosexual lobby because he opposed homosexuality, and he's now doing a 6-year sentence. I mean, it's to me, it sounds absolutely. The conviction of George Pell is not just a case of reasonable doubt, but it seems to be ludicrous. Oh, it's we got 4 people. 4 people tonight. That's I think I don't know that as many as that since I started. I'm at 7 at one point earlier on. Right, Peter. Jack. Hello. Great to see you again. I'll email you in a bit. Okay, about your entry. Peter Saunders. Peter Saunders founded the National Association for People Abused in Childhood in, I think, 1998. When at the age of 35 or 36, he suddenly realised he was sexually abused when he was young, and he's a total nutter. I mean, he's on this false rape timeline, and you hear him speaking. He's a total nutter. But it came out last month that he was accused of rape himself in February 2008. I mean, you can find the details there. He saw some woman on TV who was talking about being a survivor of child sexual abuse. He went up to Manchester to meet her and a friend. They were in a restaurant. They all had a lot to drink, and the two of them went into the toilet together, the cubicle, as you would do. Not, and then she accused him of rape. Said she performed a sex act, which sounds like she got down on her knees. I'm sorry, but as I said before, I've always liked a bit of romance with my sex. I've made love in a graveyard, in the back seat of a car, in the car park, but never would I do it in a toilet. Never. Now this wasn't my love, mate. It was just sex lust, whatever. And the police took no action. It just came out that the allegation was made, and I've really got no sympathy at all for this guy because he supported this ludicrous VIP witch hunt and of Ted Heath and live people like Cliff Richard. The VIP witch. Well, Cliff Richard as well. I mean, the all historical allegations, and the witch hunt of the late Ted Heath and people who are still alive like Harvey Proctor. This nutter, Carl Beach, who's now serving an 18-year sentence, not a day too long. And I mean, if this happened like 11 years ago, he should know better. He really should know better. Right. I mentioned I've made a video of the Virginia Roberts allegations. now that Jeffrey Epstein is dead, she's switched her attentions to Prince Andrew. The video is called "The Prince and the Whore." You'll find it on BitChute. So it's only about 6.5 minutes. Now, it's rather interesting. There's been very little comment from Prince Andrew. As you may know, there's a photograph of him with his arm around Roberts, Ghislaine Maxwell in the background, and they're all smiling. Well, the two women are smiling for the camera. And she was in New York, so he knows what he did. Prince Andrew, talking about Prince Andrew, he knows what he did. this woman is a whore. Yeah, by her own admission, when she was 16. Okay, the age of consent in Florida is where she's brought up. 7 is 18, but when she was 16, by her own admission, by her own claim, how much weight you give it, she was recruiting underage girls for Jeffrey Epstein. So she's not only a whore, but she's a procurer. Now, I have some sympathy with people. Anyone under the age of about 25 who's convicted of any offence, or because young people do stupid things. But at 16, people at that age, people can be in the United States can be tried as adults for murder, and they have been. Juvenile delinquents, they know right from wrong. They might understand the intricacies of a complex bribe, etc., but they know that violence is wrong, arson is wrong, and that recruiting younger girls to have sex with older men is wrong. So this woman is a whore. Very interestingly, about the only comment that's come is that Prince Andrew can't remember ever meeting her, which may be true because the photograph was supposed to be taken back in 2001. And also, some of his friends are said to have said that the photograph, he's got his arm around her, but he has chubby fingers, and it isn't in his hand. Now, it appears that he was actually on the same flight. The flight log shows him on the same flight as Roberts. Now, I do know quite a bit about fake photographs because I did quite a lot of research about this back in the 1990s, and I've done some research since then. If this is an old-fashioned photograph, I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter if it is genuine, but if it's an old-fashioned photo, if it's a pre-digital photograph, as it probably was in 2001, you need to see the original negative to determine if it's fake or genuine, because old photographs, genuine photographs can look fake, and fake photographs can look genuine. If you look at, studying fake atrocity photographs from the Second World War, Udo Valendi did a study on this called Forged War Crimes, Malign the German Nation. It makes that a very strong case. There's a lot of photographs in that which are clearly touched up. Some are miscaptioned, but some are touched up, and some and other books, Russian propaganda especially, some are more painting the photograph. But if you check the original sources, they're genuine. I've seen one of a photograph of purports to be of Jews being shot in on the Eastern Front by the Azants group, and Valendi identifies this photograph as a fake because it's been dubbed. It's been what's the word? It's been touched up, but I've actually seen the actual footage of that, the photograph, the video, so it's genuine. Back in 1982 to 1983, Geoffrey Crawley published a series of articles in British Journal of Photography, that astonishing affair of the Cottingley Fairies. I actually corresponded with Crawley 1990s, and I just actually published a memorial from today actually on Find the Grave, because he didn't have an entry on that. But the Cottingley Fairies was a really absurd. 2 girls in 1917 forged a series of photographs which purported to show them talking to fairies, and cranks, including Arthur Conan Doyle, took it seriously. I wonder what Sherlock Holmes would have thought of that. But the point he makes is that they can do all sorts of things with photographs. You can bring the subject closer. I remember reading an article in the Journalist. A guy said that one of the first tricks he learned in the dark room was how to clouds in a blue sky, in a clear sky. So unless you see the actual photograph, the original photograph, the original negative, you can't really tell. But what does this photograph show? It shows a smiling Virginia Roberts, smiling for the camera, with Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell. This is not a photograph of a slave, of a sex slave. This is a woman who's a teenage girl who's having fun. She was 17 when it was taken in London, right? Prince Andrew in his 40s at the time. A 40-year-old, a 50-year-old who has sex with a 17-year-old, consensual 7-year-old, is doing nothing wrong, right? She claims that she was paid to sleep with Andrew. Okay, she's a whore. She's a whore, you know? She isn't a victim of child trafficking. So, and the other thing to say is that whatever Epstein did, whatever real crimes he committed, I mean, that he did commit real crimes. If you compare the way Roberts was treated with some of the victims of the grooming gangs in this country, there's no comparison at all. One of the things I'll say about fake photographs, this can apply to CCTV as well. A lot of people don't understand this. I mean, they're taken in by nonsense. 7/7 bombers, for example, when there's CCTV of them passing through a barrier at a train station. It's very poor quality CCTV, and it appears to show the arm of one of them is like on the wrong side of the barrier. You get this with, you know, as if you have a bad recording of a record or of an audio recording, it doesn't sound faithful. And if you have poor quality photographs, poor quality CCTV, poor quality film, all sorts of tricks. So just because you see a film that looks fake doesn't mean it's fake. It might be genuine. And by the same token, if you see a film that looks genuine, it might still be fake. Right. There's an article in the New Statesman about attacking the new, what it calls a digital strip search policy of rape victims, i.e. rape complainants, being asked to give over their mobile phones, their mobile phone records, and well, as you know, if you visited the database, a lot of people, not that many people from phone records, but certainly other forensics, especially CCTV, who have been cleared of false rape allegations by forensics. And it publishes a statement there. Only 0.62% of rape allegations are false. No, that is a manufactured statistic. It comes from there was the CPS prosecuted 109 or 135 women for perverting the course of justice for false rape allegations over a period of time. And what they've done is they've taken the total number of rape, I think the total number of rape prosecutions, divided it by the number of allegations, the number of prosecutions for perverting the course of justice, to give that figure. But of course, as you all know, not every woman who women are sometimes prosecuted for wasting police time rather than perverting the course of justice. There are fixed penalty notices, and a lot of them are just let off. And in fact, a lot of gratuitous false accusers are treated as victims, still treated as victims. On the subject of news and of false child sexual abuse, there's a guy in Australia just been convicted of sexually abusing a woman when she was a child. This is a bloke called Kenneth Ralph Ernst. He was a school deputy head. He was charged with 15 offences against her from the ages of 13 to 16 in the 1990s. And it's come out that this woman had false, in the 1990s, she had made false claims against her own father and other people. And the jury still convict. Well, I don't see how they can convict without strong corroboration, but it just, I mean, it just, this whole fantasy about how rape allegations are extremely rare, false rape allegations are extremely rare, and we should always believe the victim, including especially when they're children. Right, now to the main subject. I'm not denying here the reality of child sexual abuse. Child rape, I think, is extremely rare. When I say child rape, I mean very young kids 10, 9, 7, that sort of thing, be raped. Most child sexual offences, other than sort of groping and touching indecent, sort of horrible stuff, but where men have raped girls, it's usually a case of what our American colleagues call statutory rape. It would be men having sex with girls of 12 and 13 without forcing, maybe bribing them, or the girls having sex voluntarily. Of course, they can't consent. That's the point. I don't have to deal with the historical aspect here, but I mean, there was no age of consent traditionally. The age of consent in this country was set at 12 in 1275. Then it was raised by 1875 it was 13, and it was raised in 1885 to 16. I'm happy with it at 16. But you have girls of 13 and 14 shouldn't be having sex at all. I mean, when I was at school, there was a kid called Marsh. He was a year or two above me. When he was about 16, he got his girlfriend pregnant, and at that time it was shotgun wedding, and he was forced to get married, forced to marry her, and I don't know what happened to him, but it was a bit hard. It was a bit of a hard case. So it didn't look quite so hard, but he was out with his pushing a pram. But now in this, I'm not going to deal here with. I mean, I say child sexual abuse happens. I'm not going to deal with child murders like Brady and Henley, Dean Call Dean Call, and was it Elmer Wayne Henley in the United States. Robert Black, who died a while back, horrible man. Nor am I going to be covering Martin, Kelly Michaels, the Cleveland Auckland's daycare history of that. I may cover that in a later hangout. But first of all, a few genuine cases, which shows that you can't. The abuse is real. Dr. Myles Bradbury. This was a really weird one. This is a doctor. I mean, like a medical doctor who. I'll get this up here. He was. This is so weird. He was convicted in 2014. He was a paediatrician, and he was carrying out examinations on boys for, a kid would go to him with a neck pain or something on his chest, and he'd examine his genitalia. He was found to have in his possession more than 16,000 indecent images, presumably of boys. He was a married bloke. I think he was a father of one. He pleaded guilty. He got a 22-year sentence, and he was reduced on appeal to 16. I mean, really weird. But recently, a woman who claimed to have been sexually abused by him was brought a claim and received a payout. I don't know where that came. I'm not sure I believe her, but he was the full. He was the full works. He had a pen with a camera in it, and in America he probably got 122 years. This is the woman who claimed to have been sexually abused by him. It's on Sky News. Let's have a look. He was sick. First woman makes abuse claims against disgraced Dr. Myles Bradbury. There's a video here. No, there's no video. But she got a 5-figure settlement. I'm inclined not to believe her, but but there's no doubt he was guilty. Another bloke who was guilty of something was the Reverend Peter Jarvis. I'm always suspicious about allegations against vicars, especially when accused of sexually assaulting girls. But where are we? Jarvis. See, cutting number 2. He was he was cleared of a number of offences. He was cleared. He was cleared. He was facing 12 counts. He was cleared. This was in 2014. He was cleared of 11 sex charges. The jury was unable to decide on the 12th, and then he went back and he'd already pleaded guilty to some lesser offence. So I think it was a case of he was definitely doing things he shouldn't have been doing. Oh, here we are. He was. Well, he was said to have asked a girl for underwear pics. Not the sort of thing you expect a vicar to do, is it? Not to a girl, anyway. That's another guilty one. I thought he might have been. I thought he might have been innocent, but apparently not. There's a rather weird one I came across here. A woman named Gina. She appears to be guilty too, but again, this is a rather strange one. Gina Sisk, who was she was accused of where are we? Gina Sisk. This dates a girl who brought a woman brought an allegation against her, and it was struck out because it was out of time. And she said that she'd been having sex with. She made a number of allegations, some which I believe are credible. Others, she was 14, and that time Sis began to engage in improper sexual conduct towards her. Sis was a PE teacher or something, a athletics teacher. She engaged in kissing, fondling, digital penetration, etc. But she didn't report until years later. But rather interestingly here, what happened was, I don't know who was responsible for it, but years later, Sisk was attacked rather badly in her own home. And it's a case of vigilantism or something. But she said she was living with another woman. I presume she was a lesbian. There's another woman here, rather strange. This is from 2009. Pervert teaching assistant was told to be jailed for found guilty of 10 charges making decent photographs of children. Rose Foxall was told there was no alternative to prison by a judge who said his subtle method to produce the footage of naked girls as young as 8. And you won't be surprised to learn that it was a bloke involved. It was her husband, which, just bizarre stuff. How people do these things, It's just And another, now, we're coming up to the subject of false allegations. One of the problems with rape and sexual abuse allegations, a lot of criminal allegations generally, is that generally victims do embroider, that they embellish their accounts. There's a case here, this is in 2003, an Albanian soldier named Gazmir Tisci, Tyci. He was accused of raping a 13-year-old girl in a Coventry Park. The girl was with her 12-year-old friend. And so there's no doubt the attack happened. He was convicted of indecent assault. Now, I've no doubt this from limited what I've seen. The girl, he was 21-year-old and 13. No. But police said they were delighted with the sentence, which was like 3 years. 3 years for indecent assault is a bit on the heavy side. I think it was actually an attempted rape, and the girl claimed it was an actual rape. There's no mention of a rape kit or anything. But I say this was a genuine victim, but genuine victims, like, they tend to embellish, and this can be a big problem, a massive problem. Right. Oops, nursery 2, nursery 3. Yeah, I mean, there have been other cases of women who've Vanessa George, a horrible nursery case. But again, it was men who were, being women who should know better, but allowing themselves to be groomed by paedophiles online and then carrying out their bidding. I mean, I really don't know who's worse. Right. Okay, child sexual abuse proper. Now, a lot of these child sexual abuse allegations are made not by children but by adults, including men as well. As I said before, Peter Saunders was 35 or 36 when he claimed to have realised he'd been sexually abused when he was young. The feminists and the sexual grievance industry generally have us believe not only in repressed memories, but that survivors, don't come out until they're 35-year-old. This is garbage. In 1988, two lesbians, Laura Davis and Ellen Bass, published a book called The Courage to Heal, which, if ever a book needed to be burned, it's that one. But they, in spite of the damage it did, they went on to produce the Courage to Heal workbook. It basically tries to convince women that basically if you were sexually abused as a child, the answer is you can't say you weren't. The answer is either I was or I don't know. And this is 1988. It's published, but this is following on from the Satanic Panic, and you had lots of disturbed young women going into therapy with eating disorders and stuff, and coming out believing they've been raped by their own fathers. There were a number of lawsuits brought against therapists in this connection. There was in this country there was a young woman named Farley, Katrina Farley, I think her name was, and there was a very good one in America. The Nicole Althus, she started off by accusing her father of indecent assault or rape, then her mother, and then like everybody down the street. What made us snap out of it was that one thing she thought she meant to done is to walk over hot coals, which would of course have scarred her feet. And when she realised that, when she realised that, when she saw her feet weren't scarred, she realised that these so vivid memories that had been recovered or repressed were actually delusions. Now, for an accused person, it's better to, if you were accused of bearing, eating babies and stuff, and if you were accused of multiple rapes and abortions of a 12-year-old, then the medical evidence would suggest that you were innocent. But for men and occasionally women who've been accused of lesser offences, it's very difficult. A lot of it comes down to credibility. I'd say that a woman who comes forward in her 30s, maybe even her 20s, who claims to have been sexually abused, is when she was a kid, has little or no credibility. That's the way I see it. Right, I'll get personal here. When was your first memory? What was your first memory? Remember? Well, my very first memory is very specific. I was the oldest of three boys, all adopted from three different mothers. When I was around 3 years old, I believe it was 3, we were living with my maternal grandparents, or we were staying there. And the doctor, whose name I can still remember, gave me an injection with a fountain pen, or so I thought. When I was at school, I don't know what it is now, but we weren't allowed to use biros, had to use old-fashioned fountain pens. And I believe all through my school years, I'd had an injection with a fountain pen. What he'd done, he'd taken out the fountain pen, he'd written a prescription. I'm not even sure if I had an injection now. It'd be on my medical records, which is 60 years old now. So, but we'll probably find the exact date that it happened. But it was only in my 20s, when I was living in Leeds, I heard the word confabulation. I realised that what had happened, or what hadn't happened. I realised I hadn't had an injection with a needle, with a fountain pen, but if I'd had an injection, it was with a needle. Yeah, somehow I got the idea in my head that I've been injected with a fountain pen. This is confabulation. This is where I'm convinced of this. There's a massive body of evidence that most allegations of child sexual abuse come from. Now, this one, I'm going to play this here now. This is a false memory, which is not so innocent and humorous as mine. This is the actress Roseanne Barr.
Whatever went on, there is one confession Roseanne made to Sally Jesse Raphael that defies logic and science.
I have my first memory of being molested by my mother at 6 months old.
Those are the kinds of memories that we can be very sure are false memories, and they presumably are induced memories. We cannot trust memories before age 3, and really up till age 4 or 5, even our memories for things of that sort, of any sort, are very hazy.
Right. Well, Roseanne Barr, that was October 7, 1991. She actually accused both her parents of physically and sexually abusing her. And that is a case of childhood amnesia. This is where the majority of false allegations, certainly for a man or a boy in his teens, or a teenage girl or a young woman to make allegations of this nature. So when I was 3 years old, 4 years old, I was sexually abused by my mother, my father. Now think about this. Think about this. You have a baby in her cot, right? She's been done what babies do, and she smells, and her nappy's chafing her. She's crying. A mother comes in, picks her up, changes her, washes her parts, covers her with cream, maybe some powder. That's what mothers do to babies. Now, babies are not sexual creatures, obviously, but touching your skin, it feels good. I mean, you can't tickle yourself actually, but a lot of the benefit of medicine is in the laying on of hands. This is why a doctor with a good bedside manner is better than a doctor without a good doctor without a good bedside manner. So, the mother does this, puts the baby back in a cot, and later the baby sees her dad, a big bloke with a beard perhaps, and she confabulates. She takes those sensations from her mother, projects it onto her father, and then because it's her father, there's also guilt and stuff. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that this is where the vast majority of child sex abuse allegations come from, when they're from teens and from adults. And this is not new. This is not my personal revealed truth. Back in 1896, Sigmund Freud published The Etiology of Hysteria, in which he concluded that childhood sexual abuse was rampant. Now, he recanted quickly, maybe under pressure from his peers, or maybe he generally realised that, it was understood then that that people had these memories. In 1984, Geoffrey Masson published a book in which he claimed that Freud deliberately suppressed this theory. Masson is a male feminist. He's actually engaged to Catherine McKinnon at one point. So anything he says is taken with a grain of salt, or maybe even a boulder. By 1984, there was massive evidence about the unreliability of memory. I should mention we all have false memories. Mostly they're trivial. You put down your keys somewhere and you think you put them somewhere else. You misremember stuff. It's very easy to create false memories in even level-minded people who are totally sane and totally with it. This is the world's leading expert explaining to a talking head how she and her team did this.
One of the things that I and my colleagues did is to try to get people to remember that they met and shook hands with Bugs Bunny at Disneyland. This would be impossible because Bugs is a Warner Brothers character and wouldn't be allowed at Disney.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do we get people to believe that? We give them an ad to evaluate. So here's a fake ad for Disney, and you can see Disney in the castle, and there's Bugs. And they review the ad. They just tell us how much they like it. Do they like the colors? Do they like the layout? But later on, when we say, tell us about one of your childhood trips to Disney. Which characters do you remember meeting? Do you remember meeting Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, the Little Mermaid, Bugs Bunny? We will get lots of people to tell us they remember meeting Bugs. And then when they get pressed for details, they'll say they shook his hand. They'll say they touched his tail. They'll say he was eating. One said he was eating a carrot. One said, a few said he said.
So it becomes real.
It becomes real. They embellish it with detail, and it looks every bit like a real memory.
Yeah.
Even though it couldn't have happened.
That's, that was Elizabeth Loftus. There's the Lost in the Mall experiment. That's another one in which she and her colleagues done. They try to convince people they were lost in a mall when they were younger. Stephen Ceci and others have done. Ceci, there's a video. I haven't put it on the timeline, but he was interviewed by John Stossel. He explained how they were talking to young kids, groups of kids, and they got one kid. But they're asking them if they'd ever got their hand caught in a mousetrap, and they asked him about 10 times over a period, and eventually one kid came out with a story. It was about, I think, about 4, maybe 4. He said that he was how his hand came to be caught in a mousetrap. His mother was called down to said tell Dad dinner's ready. He went down into the cellar. His dad was in the cellar with his younger son, with his brother. He had a bit of a dust on his body. His brother pushed him. He fell back onto a box or something, and his hand was caught in a mousetrap. And Cece was astounded that this came about. That they actually came to believe. This kid came up with a story, totally embellished, yet apparently so plausible. I'll give another example. I think I played this last time. This shows the why rape crisis centres should be shut down, every single one of them throughout the world. If they can't be shut down, they should be denied all state funding and all charitable funding. This is Cleveland Rape Crisis Centre in Ohio. This is a girl, Carson. Apparently, it was only when she became a student she realised this happened. She had no memory of the abuse until she was 16 years old. 18, she found herself in a college dorm room. I mean, this. Just listen to this.
When I was 3 or 4 years old, I was molested and raped by my best friend at the time's father, who lived across the street from us. And I completely forgot about what had happened until I was almost 16 years old. I remembered rather suddenly. And then when I was 18, my best friend brought me down here for treatment because we didn't know what else to do. I didn't want my family to know. I didn't want anyone to know at first. I was so scared of telling anyone. And it was just horrifying to realize that everything I thought I knew about myself wasn't really correct. For survivors who are watching this, who haven't come in yet, who for some reason you're scared or you don't think someone will believe you or you don't think you have the money, the treatment here is free and it can really change your life. And I understand why you'd be scared. I was terrified. I almost kept going on the bus instead of getting off on the bus stop to come here.
You should have kept going on the bus. It's absolutely outrageous that they instead of telling a young girl a truth. I mean, if a girl was 3 or 4, she was raped, there would be medical evidence. There would have been, the guy across the road, what was she doing in his custody? I did a search of a quite detailed search of the regular internet and Newsbank. I could find nothing. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous that these perfidious organisations they promote this. Just a bit more about false memories. The public is now quite aware of these. I try not to watch. I haven't watched a soap opera for a while, but there were 2 in Coronation Street, which is I think it's the world's longest running soap opera. There were 2 episodes, two different episodes, in which false memories were part of the storyline. One was a guy, the street, one of the street hooligans, crashed his car. He was trying to kill his brother for having it off with his wife on their wedding night or something, and his brother's in the hospital bed, unconscious, and he sits by the bedside whispering to him, trying to induce memories. There's another one in which a teenager fell off a ladder, and the bad guy comes in and whispers that he'd been pushed off the ladder by by his arch enemy, a woman with whom he'd had words and more. So they know all about false. The public know about false memories. Now here's another case. This is remarkable. This is from the timeline. Carl Ozard. This was a woman who was she watched EastEnders TV series, and there's a rape scene in it, and it triggered her to remember being raped by Ozard when he was a babysitter. And the police went trawling, and they found another victim, a survivor. Fortunately, he was cleared. Ironically, that particular episode of EastEnders, the rape scene in it was rape crisis advised on, and it was the way the rape was disclosed. It was absolute. I mean, the whole thing was absolute, just pure propaganda. I've included that on one of my Bill Cosby videos. The first one, Bill Cosby, Voice of Reason. When you're young, when you're very young, you learn. Whatever you learn in later life is nothing compared with what you learn as a child. You learn like taste, perspective, how to walk. We learn all sorts of things, and things get, you have childhood amnesia. Things don't gel properly. And another thing is kids of both sexes can become hypersexualized. This is because, they're learning, and one of the things they do is explore their bodies. One thing that some young girls are fascinated with is they have a hole, and and they've been known to insert things into their vaginas. And boys, and if you have a brother and sister, they're young and they realise they're physically different, and sometimes, and there's nothing unhealthy about this. Sometimes it can get out of hand, and they have to be trained. But this is a rather interesting case here from 1996. A girl of 9 is allegedly raped, and it turned out that she and a boy of the same age had been experimenting. Sexual experimentation with the girl's consent. It said, with the girl's consent, or rather, with the boy's consent. It's always. I mean, obviously, this is. I mean, you can't do anything with kids like that except put them on, tell them what to do, what not to do. Now, as well as confabulating, kids also fantasize. Now, this is an absolutely incredible case from the United States. This is from 2015. This is a bloke called Joel Acapelli. He was running a Sunday school in South Carolina with his wife. And a 4-year-old girl told her mother he'd removed her underwear and licked her. Didn't say she said this on the Monday. So the mother took. Then the girl denied. The mother took the daughter to the paediatrician. We got mandatory reporting in the United States, and mandatory reporting means that people can't exercise their judgment or common sense. Fortunately, this guy had a cast iron alibi. Not only was the CCTV, but he wasn't there at the time it's supposed to have happened. But how would you like to be in a position where a 4-year-old girl accused you of doing something like that? Anyway, this is a short clip of the man and his attorney.
Friday, I was on my way home. My wife called and said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm on the bridge coming home." Why? She's like, "Well, the police are here and they have a search warrant for the security system." I said, "Okay, I don't know really why they have a search warrant. I volunteered it. They never called me for it." So I get home and there's cops everywhere, cars everywhere across my property and my lawn. And I was like, I don't understand what everybody is here for. I don't know what kind of security system you think I have, but it's not that big. And then the detective informed me that they had a search warrant for it, so I'll go get it. He said, you can't. I said, I understand if you want it, I have to get it. He's like, no, we have an arrest warrant for you. And I said, I thought you haven't even looked at the videos yet. That proves I wasn't even in the building. Sir, can you walk up to the car so we don't have to put handcuffs on him for new children? And that was it. I was in the violent crime section of the jail. Very nerve-wracking. Clearly I've never been in that process before. The process assumes that you've been there before, right? They just assume you know what to do and what's going on, and clearly I didn't. A lot of praying, a long time, and just trying to get through that process. Realizing that you have no control, and what we take for granted, our freedom, can be taken away clearly with a lie and a false allegation, and the police department choosing not to do any investigating, not look at any videos, don't talk to nobody, just take a statement that is 100% inaccurate and run with it.
Yeah, that's on the timeline at June 29th, 2015. If you're, how would you like to be accused of something like that? You can imagine how many men, and indeed how many women, have been falsely accused and convicted because children don't lie. I mean, you can't really accuse a 4-year-old girl of lying under those circumstances, but if this girl had told her mother there was a crocodile under her bed, what she had done. And as this guy said, and as I've said, the police know about these things, and they routinely ignore them. The courts ignore them because partly under pressure from the sexual grievance industry, they want convictions, and people like that are easy targets. Child protective services in the United States and child services here are the worst. If you want to see a really bad case, look on the timeline in 1989. There's Alicia Wade. That is a truly shocking case. That when they chose not to believe the child. I mentioned a few other things about for personal experience. You often hear that kids don't report because they're terrified they won't be believed. Yada yada yada. Well, no, there are other reasons. I grew up in the 1960s. I was never sexually assaulted as a boy. Later I had a couple of experiences with blokes trying it on when I was older teen. But I mean, I was physically assaulted a number of times by adults, but that was just the way it was. When I was 6 years old, I didn't start school until I was 5.5. We were in the art class. I was painting the ceiling, a high ceiling. I was flicking with a paintbrush and decorating the ceiling. The teacher saw, and she grabbed me by the arm, slapped me several times around the legs, and made me sit under the table. Now, did I tell my old man? No, because if I had, if I'd said what had happened, he said, "Well, why did she do that?" "Oh, nothing, Dad." "Well, it must be a reason. She must have done it for nothing." And if I'd told him, and he said, "Well, if you paint my ceiling like that, you'll get my belt," and that would have been it. At that time, if you talk back to a teacher, you'd twist your lug hole. What was that, Smith Minor? Women teachers as well. People wouldn't stand for stuff. But by the 1990s, things had changed, and this is 1990. What's this? 19. I dug this out recently. I remember this at the time. 1998. There was a police officer in Coventry, isn't it? What was it? The Evening Mail. It's. I remember this case at the time. No, Birmingham. Well, it's Birmingham Evening Mail. Police officer named Hately, appropriate name for a police officer. He'd slapped a 12-year-old kid around the head, and he was taken to court and fined for it. And there was a paper, actually, the Evening Mail printed a special edition for him, please turn to pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 7. Special. I can't imagine him doing it now. That is not police brutality. We don't have a lot of police brutality in this country now. If we ever did, it's only with certain types of people who get it. At the same time, there was a woman, Claire Ham, of Oaks Lane Drive, Solihull. She was charged with common assault. She smacked two 2-year-old boys, and her husband wasn't pleased about it. She said she lost her job. She faced crippling legal bills. She only agreed to plead guilty after bargaining with the prosecution. She said she felt very bitter about the way she was treated. She got a £250 fine. Oh, no, it was Hately. It was about PC Hately. My wife, too, was pushed beyond the bounds. What could be reasonable behaviour because of a different youngster? No, I've got no sympathy for her at all. There's a saying that I think for the first 18 months, first 2 years of his life, a child can do no wrong. You can't discipline a 2-year-old. I mean, you can, a parent can. We obviously have just a sec. Hello. Better be quick because I'm on YouTube. No. Catch you later. Amazing, truly amazing. Yeah, I mean, if a kid's like touch a hot stove or putting things in his mouth it shouldn't do, then obviously you got to take some action. But that's down to parents. But a teacher cannot, or a nursery, you can't smack a 2-year-old. So times have changed. In 1982, this is from a man of 35 who had an affair with a 14-year-old girl was given a 9-month sentence at Bradford Crown Court. That's a bloke named Burton James Smith. And he also admitted taking a van without consent and driving while disqualified. Timothy Clayson, the prosecutor, said Smith met the girl in summer at intercourse 3 times weekly until his arrest in November. She ran away from home and had lived together in a caravan. And he got 9 months for that. Incredible. And this is one here from the Bradford Telegraph in August. No, this is outrageous. A judge in child rape cases replaced a judge. Judge Peter Stanley Price sentenced a 25-year-old man. Sentenced a man to 25 days in prison for twice raping a 6-year-old girl in Halifax. That's. Are you serious, geezer? Are you serious? So there is some, they may be total cunts, but the feminists do. They claim that sexual incidents weren't taken so seriously. At one time, it's it does have some justification. Of course, it's changed now. So a couple of things. When I was this is another couple of anecdotes. Well, at least it actually happened. But when I was about 14, I was with a friend in the year below. We were on the banks of the Grand Union Canal, and we were trying to catch tiddlers or something. And a young bloke rode up on his bike, and he asked us, "Listen, we want to make some money." And there was a trees. It was a very scrawny tree, and he sort of led us into there. He said, I asked him out, and he said, give us a wank. And he took out, he was wearing blue jeans, and he took out his Hampton and told us what he wanted to do. I looked at my friend, and he looked at me, and we laughed, and we politely declined. The guy got on his bike and rode off towards Southall. Now, I didn't report that. I don't think he reported that because it was embarrassing, and it was embarrassing and funny. But obviously, if the police would have been taken, well, the police wouldn't have thought it was funny. 30 more years later, I was doing some research at Colindale, and I came across a similar incident of a bloke who, I don't think it was him. Canals seem to attract all sorts of strange people. I mean, there was a young girl a few years ago, Alice Gross, was murdered on a canal towpath, and there was a very serious case in North London. It was Alice Gross, I think, London Gross. There was a case in North London of a girl was raped by a gang of them. Raped girls as well as boys. This girl was raped and they threw her in the canal. I mean, it's absolutely. I think it's canal on the river, North London. Another time, some dirty old queer tried to pick me up at Greenwood Chess Club. He called himself Sidney Samuels. Well, he was a bit obvious. He couldn't even play. He wanted me to give him a queen nod to come back to his place, and I asked him outright if he fancied me. The worst thing that happened to me, potentially the worst thing that happened to me, when I was about 15. I was over the fields bird nesting or something I shouldn't be doing, and a kid came along. A kid, he maybe about 20 or so, in an air gun, and we don't have proper guns in this country, and he sort of pointed at me, marched me, and he told me to get in this pond. And I had a choice between getting in the pond and running, so I ran, and he fired after the pellet whizzed past my ear. He obviously didn't shoot to hit me. The thing I remember about that was that he had his sister with him, or at least I hope it was his sister. It was a young girl. She couldn't have been more than about 4, so I hope it was his sister. Now, if I'd have actually gone into the pond, I would have definitely have reported that. Those incidents actually happen, but what value are they in a courtroom? Where we have somebody comes 10, 20, 30 years later says this happened to me. They're not value, and those are very clear memories. They weren't confabulated. Now, so times have changed a lot. I just mentioned the guy, a 35-year-old, who had sex with a 14-year-old. Adam Johnson, the footballer, he got a 6-year sentence for sexual activity. He was 28. He got 6 years of sexual activity with a child. He didn't even have sex with her. It was just, if he waited another 6 months, he could do it legally. Now, I mentioned before trawling. This is very, the way what happens is when the police, when there's an allegation against a teacher or care worker or something, which may be genuine, they go looking for victims, and they find them. I found another one here. This is a sexual woman keeps job. This is from Yorkshire Post, August 20th, 1983. A young woman house parent who had a sexual relationship with a 50-year-old worker care is to be allowed to keep a Liverpool City Council job. She was 23. So she should be in jail now. And in fact, there's a teacher, a 55-year-old teacher who had sex with a girl. This is from 2001. William Kyle, this is in Scotland. He had an affair with a 55-year-old has an affair with a 14-year-old, and he got a year, which is, compare that with Adam Johnson, and this is This is a much more recent one. This is from this month. A married teaching assistant tried to meet a 15-year-old at a hotel. Been in jail for 2. She got 2 years. 42-year-old, and she's. I wouldn't kick her out of bed. Should have given me a ring. So they're in 20 years out of the way. No, seriously. So I mean, the courts of they do mete out very harsh sentences. Well, in comparison, harsh sentences to what they used to for these sort of offences, even for Mrs. Robinson. But as I say, teachers go trawling. Now, I'll give you a hypothetical example. When I was at boarding school, East Quinton, we had a teacher, Mr. Roberts, used to teach us mathematics. We used to call him the Dragon. And on your birthday, he'd take you into Seaford. He'd buy you a present. It happened to me once. He bought me a dinky toy. He also gave me 6 the best, which was I got stuck on something. I wasn't doing any work at all, and he caught on. The only time I did get 6 the best, I got 1 strike of the table says I got 1 strike of the bat when I was a senior at my regular school, local school. But at least I got 6 the best, and I shot to the top of the class on that. But you can imagine that. A kid has been disciplined by a teacher, right? And he's had a troubled life. A lot of these accusers, they've been in secure units and care and that, and end up in prison. And imagine a guy is in jail. That was 1960s. That'll be about 1964. Imagine a guy had been at school in the 1980s or 90s, and he's in prison now, and police turn up and they say to him, "We're investigating something happened in your old school. You're not in any trouble. Do you remember this when you were at such and such a school? Did you have this teacher? Did somebody do this to you, etc.?" You can imagine, and these kids, these people, they have their own victim narratives, and suddenly the police come and the police are talking nicely to them, and they may be offering them like tea and sympathy and compensation. You can understand them lying, can't you? The Cato Harris case needs to be mentioned. There's an audio interview of him by Julia Hartley Brewer on the timeline. A full 45-minute interview. This shows how dangerous it is to put ideas into kids' heads. There was a 14-year-old girl at a North London school. I remember staff saw she was looking a bit sullen, as 14-year-old girls and 14-year-old boys tend to do at times. And she asked her, "Have you been sexually abused?" And the girl went, and she ended up accusing Harris of buggering her 3 times. So it was at a previous school. And he stood trial, and this guy isn't a mangina, he isn't a wimp, he's a beta male, but he's as far from alpha male you can imagine. As a guy who's a young father, a married man with his own, he's got a kid of his own. But it's a sort of bloke afraid of his own shadow. He's got nervous problems. And he was on trial. He was cleared in about 15 minutes, and it was like the examination. It was clear that the scenarios in which the girl claimed he'd raped her couldn't have happened because of the protocols in place at the school at the time, and the fact that one of the doors she mentioned couldn't have been locked from the inside. So that happens. There was a case of a New Zealand school teacher who was framed by a class not for rape, but for if I get this, yeah, he was meant to sort of done a Joe Biden impression, rubbing the girl's hair and stuff. This is on the timeline. It was in April 2018. He was acquitted. It was meant to have touched. I love this. Inappropriately touched 3 girls, as opposed to appropriately. In his class, age 11-year-olds, and stroked the student's hair in a decent. He struck a student's hair in a decent manner, hair on the head, swiped his hands over the chest area of 2 of the victims, grabbed the breasts of another, and under cross-examination, they all admitted they'd lied. So, I mean, so when I was at school in the 60s, that sort of thing wouldn't have been entertained. But now, well, you wouldn't dare make a false allegation against a teacher like that. There's the case of Francis Titino, a falsely accused man in Guam. That's January 26, 2015. You'll find a video on there. This is a very, very interesting one. In April 2016, it was only a false allegation of attempted sexual assault, but it was a 13-year-old girl claimed to be attacked on a dirt track in the north of England. A man heard her cry out, and it's her 12-year-old friend. The attacker cycled off. One of the girls snapped him on a mobile phone, and obviously it was a big police hunt. And it turned out they made it up. I don't know if the guy had been trying to cycle past them, on a narrow path or something, but they just made it up. And the police told them to write a letter of apology to him. And what else can you do with a 12 and 13-year-old? I haven't mentioned parental alienation syndrome, but I just want to mention one adult, but one particularly outrageous allegation by an adult, a social worker, now thankfully a former social worker, Susie Smith. Jonathan Copeland was a single parent, and she said in a fit of pique, she accused him of sexually assaulting his daughter, claiming he was stroking her leg, and in a fit of pique she did this. She kept up the charade for 3 months before admitting she made it up. Unbelievable. This guy was back in the news this year, actually. He was at a hotel with his daughter, and somebody called the police on him. It was a paedophile grooming a 13-year-old. Divorce is deadliest weapon. Now that's a video. You'll find it on the timeline at November 19th, 1983. Full video. Full videos in the Internet Archive, and there's an alternative link as well. I'm so good to you. That shows the way. That was back in 1993. So even then, people in the legal system were catching on. And there's one other thing. Final thing I will say is that the false allegations are sometimes made by men as an excuse, well, by women as an excuse for their behaviour in later life, also for men. Tony Ayala Jr., who was an absolute pig and a rapist, he claimed to have been sexually abused when he was a boy. He was a boxer, he was a potential world champion, but he really horrible creature. My favourite is Rurik Jutting, who tortured and murdered 2 prostitutes in Hong Kong. He claimed he was sexually abused when he was a boy as well. And so did Michael Caputo, who murdered 4 women. I'd like to end this hangout with the case of Marie Black. This is an outrageous miscarriage of justice. Paedophile rings exist. They do exist, and very occasionally there will be women involved. a woman. Usually, the most I've seen is 2 women. That's in the little Ted's case. Marie Black was a young mother who was accused of hiring out her kids to be sexually abused. There was a paedophile ring consisting of 4 men and 6 women, if you can imagine that. No, I can't actually. One woman was convicted. I think she pleaded guilty to assault or child cruelty, so a non-sexual offence. Marie Black was given an extraordinary sentence. I believe that her kids were totally innocent, and she was totally innocent. Her kids were. I mean, I think her treatment was outrageous, and she's in HMP Bronzefield. Well, she was 120 studies. HMP Bronzefield. If anyone wants to write to her, I've got a prison number. But so I know one woman who has taken an interest in the case. Absolutely outrageous miscarriage of justice. So anyway, as I've said, allegations of child sexual abuse are not total fantasy, but children do fantasize. They can be used, they can be exploited by social workers and by perfidious organisations like Rape Crisis. Women and men who come forward years later claiming they were sexually abused when they were young are to be treated very, very skeptically. And you've got things like childhood. I think childhood amnesia and confabulation is responsible for most of these cases. Those who aren't just outright lying. Very, very tragic. Some of these cases. You see the Acapelli, the nursery case from South Carolina. How easy it is for people to be falsely accused, and if that guy didn't have CCTV, he could have been in a hell of a lot of trouble. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I will make this private and put it online in a day. Well, I'll make some notes. It might take 2 or 3 days. Thank you for coming. Still got 3 people here. I think the most I've had is 7 in one sitting. But I'll put this on this will be on YouTube and next month on the Internet Archive. I'll probably do another live hangout later in the month. I want to do one on the Grand Conspiracy at some time, but something more routine. Okay, thank you for coming. You especially, Jack, and I will catch up with you guys in due course.